Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker betting show. I'm your host, George Elek, and this is an Irish Derby preview. I'm joined by two expert guests. As ever, it's Oddschecker's very own tipster, Andy Holding, and making his debut, it is at the races tipster Tony Keenan. Tony, I'll come to you first. It's always the way on this podcast, on this show, when we get a new expert guest on, that they get a bit of time to introduce themselves, tell us about how they got into the game, what the tipping strategy is, and other bits and bobs. So let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, don't really have any background in racing. Would have had a few terrible punters in my family, my grandmother, a couple of uncles who are absolutely awful judges. I don't know was that the starting point for it or something not to follow and things like that. But I suppose in my 20s I kind of got into following racing a bit around the time of, I don't know, Footsteps in the Sands, Guineas, Hawkwing, Galileo, High Chaparral, that type of generation. I've studied English in college. I'm actually a teacher still. This is kind of like a hobby, second job for me. I've always liked enjoying doing a bit of writing and a bit of punting, and I've been with ATR now for about 2.5 years. My tipping process, I suppose, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, definitely a master of none. Try to use lots of different things, whether it be times or replays, trainer angles, stats, form book, whatever. I don't think I've one specific angle above others. But yeah, generally my focus is on the better Irish racing. That's kind of what suits me, I think. Anyway, and really looking forward this weekend. Tomorrow looks a smashing card. Actually, the Irish Derby standards, the field sizes have really held up, and it's going to be the first time I think since last March. There's actually going to be some race goers at the track tomorrow, so which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. It is great. And you see how good at the decent Irish stuff. It doesn't get much bigger than the Dubai duty-free Irish Derby on Saturday. You mentioned there having some terrible punters in your family, some bad judges. Andy, I remember when we came and filmed your day in the life, you mentioned that maybe you had a similar learning from your old man as well. So maybe that's what you need to be a good judge. You just need to know a bad judge.
Yeah. A lot of people who know my dad would know him sort of like around the Midland circuit as being sort of betting shop fodder. He was your archetypal sort of race to race punter that just literally had to have a bet on everything. Would it be a virtual race, greyhound race? And sometimes when I used to accompany my dad in a betting shop, I used to look at him and think, Dad, what on earth are you doing? You've got to be more selective. You've just got to treat, and he used to look at me and think, well, why am I only having one bet a day and I'm just sitting here watching the rest of it? But that's been my process through my life, and I kind of learned how not to make as many mistakes as my dad, I suppose. I think that's what we all try and do in this game. We all try and back the winners, but it's cutting out the losers, I think, which is more just as important in the long term. So yeah, I learned from the master, as it were, with regards how not to bet, and I like to think I've made a slightly better fist of it than my old man.
Some buzz though when you back the winner in the virtual dogs, though, I've got to say.
Oh.
Although we do not condone that behaviour in any way, shape, or form. I should mention as well, we're recording this at about 10:15 on Friday morning, so the day before the racing. But as is often the case, some of the races on Saturday aren't priced up yet. I'm sure they will be in a few hours' time. But for that reason, instead of going through the card chronologically, we're going to kick off with the 3 group races on the card. We've got the Railway Stakes, the Group 2 at 3:05, then the Derby itself at 3:45, and then the ARM Holding International Stakes at 4:20, the Group 3. So we're going to go through those 3 first, which have prices up. I'm crossing my fingers and toes that whilst we're recording, possibly the 2 listed races will be priced up as well. But if not, then both Andy and Tony have studied the form anyway and can give you some horses just to put a circle around ahead of the racing. Before we get into the first race we're going to preview, which is that Railway Stakes, the Group 2. Tony, just going to come to you. You mentioned there that the good Irish stuff is your bread and butter. Talk to those people who may be listening to this or watching this who mainly bet over in kind of mainly British racing, what you look for at the Curragh, at the Curragh as a race course. What kind of a horse are you looking forward to really perform there? Are there any racing tactics that you think are better employed there? Just give us a bit of an outline of the course itself.
basically 2 tracks at the Curragh, and you have a round track and a straight track. I think the straight track's a very fair track. Bar you've got a draw bias. Sometimes, I think they've done the best to negate that in recent years by setting the sprint stalls up the centre of the track. I think it can be a really testing track over a mile. You don't want a short runner there. Round track's a different story. Round track racing can get very messy there. Horses can get hung wide. Straight isn't all that long. Take say the Derby, for instance, the high definition is drawn quite wide. That's not ideal around there. You caught wide for a long way. We saw in the Irish Derby 2 years ago when Sovereign won it, he got loose on the lead, and sometimes they don't always come back. And that listed race tomorrow, on the mile track, it's quite an unusual race. I think the Celebration Stakes, it's on the round mile. They basically run about 2 or 3 races a year on that. That's almost like a 7 furlong race because the early part of it's downhill, and again getting drawn wide there can be really tricky. So yeah, I tend to think the straight track races are a little bit tend to be maybe a little bit fairer than the round track. There's a prominent pitch on the round track can be helpful.
Interesting stuff. Well, we'll get into the first race that we're going to preview, which is the 305. Before we do so, just going to point you in the direction of the oddschecker app. Do download it now for the best prices, place terms, bookie offers, free bets, and some of the best tipsters in the game, including Andy himself, whose column you can find every morning's racing. For the first place you'll find it is on the oddschecker app. Now, the 305, 6 furlong Group 2, and Dr. Zemph is the 5-2 favourite. Just Paddy's and Betfair Sportsbook out their prices at the moment. Castle Star 11-4, Go Bears Go 9-2, Cadamosto 5-1, Duke Box 9-1, Masetto 10-1, the Acropolis 16s, Pinar de Rio 16s, 25-1 Bar. And you got a couple there towards the top of the market in Go Bears Go and Cadamosto who've maybe had quite a bit of a blow at Ascot fairly recently. How much does that come into your consideration when it comes to looking at this?
Well, being a time figure man, it's certainly bolstered their credibility with regards numbers, because going into Royal Ascot, there's a good chance that you probably wouldn't have been able to run to a standard that you're likely to when you go to the run meeting and come out of that, because most of the 2-year-old races that we got were very strongly run, and that they were good numbers. Cadamosto certainly enhanced his credibility with a cracking run when he finished 4th in his race behind the horse of Richard Fahey's. He was drawn on the far side. As it turned out, he was slightly worse off, only margin. I think that was one of the races where both sides kind of like almost dead heated. He's a nice horse, Cadamosto. He impressed at Dundalk. I think if anything, I don't know if Tony agrees with this, but he'd had quite a time off. I think he'd won at Dundalk Maiden, maybe in March or April. I can't quite remember now. Yeah, and that sort of layoff might have just been a little bit of an issue for him going into the Royal Meeting. I don't know that, but that was my impression. I kind of went off him a little bit because he'd had such a long layoff. But he ran really well. But I think all of these 2-year-olds here, including the ones with plenty of experience, are going to be up against a very smart colt in the shape of Dr. Zemph. He clocked a number when he won on debut at the Curragh. It was on the day when Port Lonsdale won the first race. There was 2 very good, smart 2-year-old races, and Dr. Zemph won the second one, and he beat a filly called Elliptic, who had gone into that race off the back of a good victory at Tipperary, beating Quick Susie of all horses. We didn't realise how good that race was at the time, but it's proved to be one of the best fillies races regards form for the rest of the season. And Dr. Zemph looked very second rate. I mean, I thought Elliptic ran really well on ground that she wouldn't have liked at Royal Ascot, so I think you can take that as a positive. And it was just the manner in which he did it. He cruised in behind the speed. He had a push-button acceleration. I thought he won with a ton in hand. But more importantly, his time figure was very good. It was the same time figure, exactly the same we awarded his race as Port Lonsdale. We thought Port Lonsdale was a good thing in the Chesham, off the back of his time and his sectionals, which he did at the Curragh that day. And Dr. Zemph, I thought, won even more easily. And he's of a similar ilk. He's drawn a stall too. Tony's already mentioned the draw. That would be my only slight bugbear with him. They're probably the stalls will be down the middle, and they're more than likely to go down the middle a bit in a 2-year-old race. There's not quite enough runners for them to get over and across, maybe. with just the 14 going to post. Providing the draw isn't a issue, I think he's by far and away the best horse in this field. And I think it's very interesting that Ger Lyons resisted the temptation to go to the Coventry and wait specifically for the railway. That's a tactic that Ger often employs. That he very rarely brings one over to the UK. Only really if he thinks he's got almost a certainty in a certain race that he'd bring something over. He tends to stay on home soil. So he'd be my bet in the race. Healthy respect for Cadamosto, Castle Star, and Masato, of course, time with Curragh course and distance form. But yeah, I think Dr. Zem could be just a cut above the lot.
Yeah, as I said, we're recording this on Friday morning. Paddy's and Betfair start the knockout prices yesterday afternoon, opened up for Dr. Zemph at 4-1, in now to 5-2 very quickly before another firm's even opened. So interesting to see. A couple of others, when doing their tissue, might have similar thoughts, so keep an eye out for some bigger prices that could come out bigger than 5-2. But Dr. Zemph, the one for Andy at the top of the market. Tony, do you agree?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Don't think you're getting any sweets at the price, but the market cycle is a good way to go. Yeah, it's very unusual really with stakes this. 14 runners. I was looking back historically at this. There hasn't been a double figure field. I was using a database back to 1997. It's usually a 5-6 runner affair. So, a big field. I think that will actually suit Dr. Zemph, provided he gets some luck and running. I thought it came down kind of to the big four, the two that ran at Ascot plus Castle Star plus Dr. Zemph. I would agree with Andy that there's a strong possibility Cadamosto needed the run. I think he took 4 missed targets in between the initial Dundalk win and going to Ascot. He looked a bit rusty. He came off quite early at Ascot before finishing out quite well. Go Bears, go. They obviously seem to think this is a pure 2-year-old because they've supplemented him into this race and they want to kind of strike while the iron is hot. He's also a sort of quite an expensive breeze-off horse as well. I just wondered, had he maybe a little bit too much speed for the 6 furlongs here? He looked get quick Ascot, kind of set it up for something. Would give Castle Star a mention. He's kind of been the star 2-year-old in Ireland in terms of winning the Marble Hill and things like that. He was a bit disappointing, found it hard to win his first couple of starts, but I think they only just figured out how to ride him in the last couple of wins, just drop him out and come with a late run. So I wouldn't rule him out. He might want a little bit more rain. I see they've had another 5 mils overnight. Bring it back to good, and they're still projecting a few showers more to come. So yeah, I would lean Dr. Zemph. I'd be hoping for a little bit of a drift with Castle Star obviously in big danger, but again I think that's quite obvious in the market at the minute anyway.
So Dr. Zemph, the standout bet for Andy, and I think Tony pretty much agreeing with his thoughts of him being the likely winner over the Railway Stakes, the 305 at the Curragh on Saturday. We'll move on to the big one now, the Irish Derby, where High Definition is the 15-8 favourite. That's with Hills and Bet Victor. Mojo Star, the perennial bridesmaid, 5-1. Hurricane Lane, 11-2. Max Swinney, 8-1. Lone Eagle, 8-1. Van Gogh, 14s. Earlswood, 16s. Wordsworth, 20s. 25-1 bar. And Andy, when I texted you early this week, I said, are you up for a Irish Derby preview later on in the week? You replied saying, yeah, shouldn't take long. High Definition should be odds on and we'll win. Well, here we are, Friday morning, 15-8, the good thing. Tony's mentioned that there could be a bit of a draw concern here, but how are you feeling about High Definition's chances going into the race?
Yeah, pretty clear cut still, as far as I'm concerned. The draw is a slight issue, but I think this field will get splintered early on because, as we well know, Aidan O'Brien, it looks like he's running a couple of foot soldiers in this race. Arturio Toscanini maybe, and Matchless. I think with the greatest respect to those two, not as though we're going to get another sovereign here again, but I think they're in there perhaps to force a healthy pace. You've also got obviously Wordsworth as well if the tempo is on the slack side, and I think sort of like I said, they'll get spread out quite early. So hopefully Ryan Moore will be able to slot in somewhere on High Definition. And don't forget, this fella came from an impossible position seemingly to win the Beresford here as a 2-year-old. I mean, only a very, very high-class horse such as him could have made that kind of ground up that day and beat a field as he did in the manner that he did. York was just a kind of almost just to test the water, really, with regards, whether he was going to go to the Derby. And I think if they have won the Dante, their hand would have been forced. But he shaped and he ran like a horse that had got a real bright future ahead of him. He did all his best work at the end. in what looked a good Dante, and obviously the Dante form stood the test to a certain degree in the Derby with Hurricane Lane running an honourable third. I just think this track will really suit him. He's already, proven himself around the track twice. I'm finding it hard really to find any reason why I won't be backing this horse at 15 to 8. Like I say, on potential alone, on what I think he's going to be capable of further down the line, I think he should be a little bit shorter. Or you could make a case for him being shorter. I think the each way bet or the each way alternative, now I've seen the whole field, and I didn't realise at the time when I texted you that Mojo Star was going to be a runner. Mm-hmm. He definitely comes into the equation. I think he'll beat Hurricane Lane again. I think he'll confirm the Derby form. As far as my eyes could see, he was going further away from Hurricane Lane in the latter stages of the Derby. Don't forget that was only his third career start, whereas Hurricane Lane had already been proven in group company. He's run behind Manobo at Newbury, was good on the time figures, and Manobo's proven that form was more than respectable. I actually had a few quid on Mojo Star at a big price in the Derby myself. So
you and I both, Andy. I don't think anything sums up my last couple of months punting, though, that I managed to back. I was told an absolute good thing on second start. Managed to come second and come second in the Derby, get it beat on, and as you say, behind Manobo. But yeah, I mean, what 250 to 1, was there a bit of that around?
Oh yeah, I only got 125. I say only, it's still a decent price. But yeah, I thought he ran a smashing race in the Derby. Went through the race like a good horse and stayed the trip really well. He's got a nice draw on Saturday, and the ground should be ideal for him. I think he'll stay really well. I think 5 to 1 for him, if I didn't have such a healthy respect for high definition, would definitely be my idea of a concrete each way bet. But yeah, that's the way I'm probably going to play it. Whether I'll split mistakes and just have a little saver on Mojo Star, I don't know. But yeah, high definition for me.
High definition 15 to 8, as I say, with Hills and Bet Victor. Mojo Star pretty much 5 to 1 across the board. Sky Bet sticking out there next to the moment with 4 places, but I'm pretty sure come tomorrow there'll be a few others there as well. So it might be worth just holding fire if you are going to back Mojo Star each way. Tony, how are you seeing the Derby going?
Yeah, another race again. I have a massively strong opinion on high definition. I suppose you're playing the man a little bit if you're fancying him. That makes total sense. Aidan O'Brien, we've seen this. This idea of using the prep run. Japan was the one that took the massive leap from the Dante to Epsom that year. And judging on the vibes, he'd a bad blood count before York. High definition just seems like a horse is going to take a jump. Would agree completely with Andy what he's saying there. But talking about the round mile earlier, high definition was a rare horse to come from off the pace there when winning the Barrish for a potential Derby horse, potential Ledger horse to be doing that. Took some doing, and he was beating good horses there. I was a little bit negative on Mojo Star. Richard Hannon as a trainer in middle distance Group 1s. Just I think he's won from 21 in Group 1 races over 12 furlongs. With only the one to win was Peddler's Moon in a 4-runner Coronation Club. I don't know. I think I'd prefer backing Aidan O'Brien maybe in a race like this. What I got there, the ground's not going to come from McSwinney, Hurricane Lane. I was interested in Andy's view on it. What was the time figure saying, Andy, about the Epsom race? Like Adiyar has beaten, I think, Mojo with 4 lengths and Hurricane Lane the guts at 8 lengths. I think he'd nearly need to be a superstar for these two to be maybe competitive here. What did you reckon on that?
Yeah, the Derby was the strongest 3-year-old middle distance race we've got so far this season on the figures. The quickest one we've got is Poetic Flare, who won the St James's Palace, isn't it? We awarded that race 103, but we gave the Derby 100, which is pretty good. I mean, there was no holding back in the Derby. There was no hiding place. If your stamina was suspect, you got found out. And I think that's why there was long distances between the first 3 or 4. To my eyes, Hurricane Lane just didn't quite get home. McSwinney definitely didn't get home. I thought he was a beaten horse 2 furlongs out. So it's hard to see McSwinney or Hurricane Lane really reversing the form with Mojo Star, even though their reputations are higher and they got better form. Going into Epsom, I still think Mojo Star is going along the right lines. I think there's more to come with him, where the other two have kind of, once I peaked and plateaued. I don't want to be disrespectful for those, but I do think Mojo Star's capable of another big effort or two.
Yeah, well, I suppose the thing with him is he had only the 3 starts, and that whereas McSweeney's on the go from quite early on in a 2-year-old season, and Hurricane a bit less so, but has had a few runs. I suppose if the rains did come, which seems quite unlikely, I could see Earls would run a little bit of a race. I thought he was really good, strong at the line now in the Gallinol. And it looks like the extra couple of furlongs will suit him. But yeah, I would lean towards high definition. 15 to 7 to 4 seems perfectly fair to Metten on the trainer, who obviously excels in the race and at the meeting generally.
High definition, getting a ton of respect from both Andy and Tony there. Mojo Star, the one possibly to chase him down, certainly according to Andy. We'll get on then to the ARM Holding International Stakes, the 420, where Cadillac is a 3-1 favourite ahead of True Self at 7-2, Njord 6-1, Thunder Kiss 9-1, Dawn Patrol and Ontario both 11-1, 12-1 Bar, 12 run as it stands at the moment. Tony, we'll give you first run here.
Yeah, was inclined to oppose Cadillac here. £5 penalty on his first start of the year. I presume things haven't gone smoothly when he's only coming out now. He would have had the Guineas and the St James's Palace and all those races as a target. So that's a little bit of worry. He's one who'd probably want the ground to soften up a little bit. I thought True Self should have been the favourite. I thought she was quite unlucky, actually, in the Tattershires Gold Cup when she was coming off a break. Holly Doyle, I think, was looking for a run up the inner, turning in, and she kind of backed out of it a little bit, pulled wide. And then sort of made up plenty of late inroads on Helvic Dream and Broome. I had worried a little bit, how was that form going to work out, but Broome backed it up totally in Hardwick. Suppose you question maybe does True Self want a little bit further than this, but then she's after winning out in Saudi Arabia the race before that on firm ground, and she's come from a bit back over 10 there. And that horse that she's beaten there, the American horse, I know he's quite an old experienced horse, Channel Maker, but he was third in a Breeders' Cup turf to Tenarwa and Magical ahead of it, so obviously not a bad horse. So I'm just wondering if True Self has improved, and if she has, which the last 2 starts suggest to me that she has done. She very much looks the one to beat here. I actually thought it was very surprising Willie Mullins missed a trick here. He didn't have her entered in the Pretty Polly Stakes on Sunday, which is the Group 1. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I definitely think that True Self should be the fav. The one at a price there that I think could run a little bit better, official ratings would give her absolutely no chance, is Zawara. It's going to be Dermot Weld. I think she's a little bit better than her official marks is. But she won quite nicely at Gore on the last day. Over I'd say a trip that is a little bit short for 9.5 on a turn and track around there on really goodish ground. Thought Dylan Brown gave her a lovely ride, kicked her on good and early, but she may have a little bit more to give, at a more conventional gallop and track up a half furlong in trip, which would probably be a more truly run race. So they'd be made 2 against the field.
Zawara 12-1 best price as it stands at the moment. True Self should be fav according to Tony, currently 7-2, second favourite with Cadillac at the top of the market. Andy, what do you make of this?
I'd have to agree with Tony wholeheartedly with his price structure with regards to True Self and Cadillac. I think Cadillac's priced up on a little bit of reputation in many respects. Obviously, taking part in some of those good Group 1s as a 2-year-old. We've got to take it on trust that he's fit enough to do himself justice after 232-day layoff. Now, look, this is a Group 3 on Irish Derby Day, so you'd like to think that Jessica's got this horse somewhere near where she would like him, but you can't account for match practice, and you can do all the work you can at home, but it's nothing beats actual experience and the actual when your blood's pumping in a race. So I'd give that advantage over to True Self as well, and I think her form, as Tony mentioned in the Tattersalls, is easily the best coming in here this season so far as proven form. Broome has upheld the form. Helvic Dream, I've got a huge amount of time for him. I actually put him up that day when he defeated the Fav. I think Noel Mead's horse is a very good horse when the ground's soft. And it might not necessarily be totally ideal for True Self. I think she's just a horse that wants nice ground, which she'll get on Saturday. So I think she's probably the one to beat based on that run a month ago. I also quite like Thunder Kiss as well. I think she's a very consistent filly, and her victory last time out at Cork, I think is Also a step in the right direction. Her form this season's been very good. She finished second to one of Willie McCreary's at Naas the time before. Willow, who I think was third that day, finally got off the mark the other night at Naas, much to my disgruntlement. Having backed her to win a small house to win the Oaks, I was about 2 or 3 runs behind time there. But she beat a horse called Silence Please, who Jessica Harrington holds it in very high regard at Cork, and I like the way she stayed on. I like the fact that she's won over a mile and a half. She's got good tactical speed for a mile and a quarter. The draws are the bugbear, still 12. We are banging on about the draw on the round track not being ideal, but that's not the draw that you would pick if sort of the draw came out the ballot and then you had a chance to pick it, as it were. But yeah, I think she was probably the one that was overpriced. Looking at the prices in front of me, 9-1 at the moment. I had her probably about a 5-6-1. Yeah, I'd probably have her in half of that odds, 5-6-1, something like that. Njord's very much dependent on soft ground. He's not going to get that. Raise You probably won't get the trip. And I thought Dawn Patrol looks, to all intents and purposes, to my eyes anyway, looks as though it's going to be Joseph O'Brien's Melbourne Cup project this season, having raced exclusively for Aidan O'Brien last year over 2 miles. Running the St Ledger, of course, beyond Galileo Chrome. The fact that it's starting off over a mile and a quarter suggests to me that that's having just a prep run and to blow away the cobwebs, and then the rest of the season sort of takes care of itself. So yeah, very interesting race. True Self, very, very solid pick down the front end, but Thunder Kiss each way would be my idea of the value in the race.
True Self 7-2, Thunder Kiss 9-1, both with William Hill at the moment. Those are the 3 races, the 3 group races on the card. We're going to quickly rattle through the others on the day. No prices as it stands. So this is going to be more of a case of Andy and Tony telling us who they think the likely winners will be, who they're going to be keeping an eye on when the prices do come out, rather than searching for value. And the first race is the Dash, the listed race, the 2 o'clock. And as I say, no prices here, Andy. So I'm not going to run through the card or anything. You just take us away with who you think could have a chance. Or if there's nobody at this stage, then just say so and move on.
Yeah, I quite like the look of the first race. I'm a big fan of Romantic Proposal. I thought she ran a super race in the Ballyogan Stakes last time. It was a race that Sanela really had it to lose, and she finally got what she deserved. Having been a little bit of a bridesmaid on a couple of occasions. And I thought Sanela ran really well at Royal Ascot. She missed the break, got a long way back, and then ran on to finish just 3 lengths beyond Dream of Dream. So, we're dealing with a Group 2, Group 1 horse there in Sanela. And I thought Romantic Proposal, for large majorities of that Ballyogan stakes, she looked the best filly. She just had to switch and from her draw and challenge down the middle of the track, whereas Sanela got a better run through towards the near side. But the 2 of them went hard at it to the line. She never shirked the issue. And that's about the 4th or 5th race on the spin now. Romantic Proposals run really well at the Curragh. She does love it. She races exclusively at the Curragh, which I think is another positive. You do like horses with plenty of course and distance form in the bag. So I think she probably, without seeing the prices they want to beat, I'd also mention Teresa Mendoza, who is a course and distance winner, who also caught the eye in that race. And I think there's going to be a big pot in her between now and the end of the season. She is a bit of a tricky madam, though. She sometimes gets the impression that she needs to be smuggled and nursed into a race, and sometimes her finishing product off the bridle hasn't always been that convincing, without being too harsh on her. But she's definitely got the talent, and as I said, I think she's capable of showing up prominently. But on the evidence of what we saw here last time, I think Romantic Proposal will have her measure again, and I'd be prepared to back her, providing the price is okay.
What kind of price would you be hoping for?
Well, I imagine she'd be sort of 2nd or 3rd favourite, I would have thought. You'd have to make a challenge up there towards the top end of the market. Speaking Colours will have his fans as well. It's going to be a wide-down race. I'd imagine before 5-1 the field. I don't see this race being a short price favourite race. So I think she'll be in and around some of those that are chalked up towards the front end, in around the 5-1, 6-1 mark.
Romantic Proposal there for Andy. Tony?
Yeah, this is becoming the most repetitive preview of all time here.
Oh, no.
Completely agree with this horse. I think she should be clear favourite for this. I think she's improved massively this year. Started out over 5 at Naas. Things kind of didn't really go away. She actually caught up a little bit, making a run there with the way that the track railed out. And then the last day at the Curragh, I thought she broke too well. The issue with Romantic Proposal is you can't hit the front with her too soon. She ran in a Group 3 here last August in Shane Cross. He was riding her for the first time. John in a minute. Come travelling all over the field, 4.5 down, and she just got to the front, lost completely. She has to be held on until the last minute, which is the way in Northern Road when she won the Scurry last year. But on the run behind Sunela there, she just actually broke too well. Shane Cross had to take her back. The problem was the pace wasn't overly strong. Sunela got first run on her and she finished off really well. We know Sunela's a good horse. I don't think she'll have any issue upholding the form with the few in behind her on that day. I think there's a big field here which might actually help her price. The fact that there are a number of runners. I think that also suits Romantic Proposal. She's a really good record in 14, 15 runner plus fields. Love that kind of thing where she can get a bit of a cover and come through. The jockey change is a little bit of a concern, but Chris Hayes taken over. He's a real hold-up jockey. He doesn't like riding horses from the front, seeing Castle Star and horses like that. So that actually should work out okay. And Eddie Lynham is the sort of trainer that he basically never has 2-year-old winners. They all sort of progress with time. And I think also with her, she's after getting a little bit faster with time. And I see she actually has a Group 1 entry coming up. There's none top of one of those. So he's thinking she's only rated 101 at the minute, but she's sort of heading that way. I think she'll definitely win a group race this year and hopefully take this listed race en route. Yeah, very much the one to beat here. The horse on the up against a few older horses that I suppose that haven't really been showing their best. The minute, like Speaking Colours, Harry's Bar, Laugh a Minute. Obviously, respect Make a Challenge in all these races, but I think he's a little bit more of a 5 horse these days than 6.
Romantic Proposal there, the handshake emoji version of a podcast there between Tony and Andy. On then to the second race, the 2:30, the Fillies Handicap. And again, Tony, I'm not going to run through the field because we don't have the prices. We don't know who's going to be at the top end, but I'll let you give us your fancy first in case you and Andy agree. At least you get to make your case first up.
Okay, fair enough. I'm taking one here. I'm going to play the man a little bit here. George Elek's horse that he's after getting from France here, Marbling. I've watched the replays of this filly. I'll just talk about those in a minute, but just the case on the back of the trainer angle. George Elek's very good record with horses arriving to his yard on the first start from other yards. That's the first thing. The second thing is he very rarely keeps older horses in training that are kind of rated for handicap ratings in the 70s, 80s, 90s. He's an excellent record with older horses going in first time into handicaps. He just seems to ditch them as 3-year-olds if they're not good enough, they're sold off. So that's another angle with her. Third thing is he's an excellent record in the handicaps at this meeting. He's won he won a couple of Scurry recently. He won a couple of Premier Handicaps at this meeting going back in the last 10 years. But very interestingly, he won in 2016, he won with a horse called Seawolf, who was switching to him from another yard. In similar ownership to this crowd, Sean Jones and the Gaelic Bloodstock operation here, and Buffer Zone as well, won a good handicap at this meeting in 2019. Again, having his first start in sort of the same colour. So I think this is very much a kind of a modus operandi that they do tend to do. The other thing is this horse is bought out of France. It's Judmonti horse. Gerald's trains for Khaled Abdullah, or what was Khaled Abdullah. So, I kind of think that he's not going to be sold a pup out of that operation. I think that's going to be something that, he'd have a little bit of a line in there. So, yeah, so watching her starts in France, I think she's been quite unfortunate in terms of track position in a couple of these runs. First time she ran, I think it was at Saint Cloud. She finished up racing hard against the Far Rail, which I don't watch any or very much racing from Saint Cloud, but those back end races, Aidan O'Brien tends to force them, and they always seem to come the near side. And she finished up racing on the stand stage. She was only just beaten. She looked like the best filly to me. Then she went down and tripped, thinking on her first start as a 3-year-old, which didn't suit her at all. Looked to find it too sharp. She hasn't run great after that. She back and break on maiden at the back end of last year before going up to a mile in her final start. And to me, she didn't really see it out. She seems to have a good record fresh. I think she's been second, third and fourth in her 3 starts fresh. She's having her first start of the year for George Elek, and she looks like a 7-furlong filly visually. Looking at her replays, I think the trip will actually suit her. And the final piece of the puzzle, I think, is she's got a Group 3 entry coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. If Gerald Lanes isn't Aidan O'Brien or Joseph O'Brien or Dominic O'Brien, would he enter every horse in these races? Tends to be quite selective. So I think the fact that they're even thinking of a Group 3 would say to me that she can probably be making an impact of 86 here. So yeah, I say I'm not claiming to be any expert in French form, but the sort of kind of trainer patterns here would suggest that they think this horse is well handicapped, and obviously Colin Keenan has picked it out of the two from the yard.
And you made a hell of a case there, Tony. I can already see myself scrolling through the results tomorrow afternoon, seeing Marbling winning and thinking, how have I forgotten to check the prices and then later on in the day? Because that is pretty compelling there. Marbling off 86 first run for Gerlines after coming over from France. Andy?
Yeah, really good research there by Tony. I can also back up the St. Cloud race that she finished down the field in. I didn't think she handled the heavy ground that day, but the winner, Lupo Nero, has won twice this season, and Padron, the third, has won at listed level. So that kind of like puts an extra layer on the standard of horse she was running against that day at St. Cloud on ground that she wouldn't have liked. So not one that I must admit, paid too much attention to. So that's a great pick by Tony. Of the ones
just has
that
to
are
win now.
Exactly, he's just got to go and win. But look, he's made a great, compelling case. Of the horses that I've sort of seen on a regular basis over in Ireland so far this season, I think More Beautiful's probably just about bringing the best form into the table, courtesy of that fifth in the aforementioned Ballyogan Stakes. She raced hard on the speed that day, and they kind of like. It's one way to get a horse that wants further beats. They try to ride her aggressively, thinking, well, she's going to have a 7-hour mile. We've got to ride her aggressively, and sometimes is not the way to go, as I have found over the years. But her run behind Joan of Arc the time before at Leopardstown also stands out. Obviously, Joan of Arc's gone on to win at Group 1 level. So her last two bits and pieces of form in Group 3 standard suggests to me that she's. You're going to find this Group 3 company, this handicap company, a little bit more less fraught. So I think she's probably the one I'd concentrate on the most. But I've also got a decent amount of respect for a horse of Ken Condon's called Let's, who's unlucky in a Curragh handicap. I think it's 3 starts ago behind Pale Iris. She then went back to the track the next day over a mile on heavy ground, and she finished down the field beyond Create Belief. But we've seen Create Belief win at Royal Ascot, and a mile on heavy ground just didn't suit her. She finally got her conditions last time out at Limerick on good ground, and I thought she won quite comfortably. But I think stiff 7 furlongs on good ground, which it's likely to be tomorrow, will really suit Letts, and she's already proven over the track. So she could be one that might just slip under the radar as everyone concentrates on the sexier horses. So yeah, depending on the price, she might get my fiver each way in that race.
Let's seemingly the one there for Andy in the 2:30. Move on then. We're going to skip the 3 races we've already done and move straight on to the next listed race, the Dubai Duty Free Celebration Stakes. Again, not many. I'm not going to run through the runners and riders without the prices there, but an interesting one for Khartoum, Andy, a horse that seems to hate the trip over the Irish Sea. Very, very poor at Newmarket, then very, very poor at Ascot, but running over at Naas or the Curragh seems to be a different horse.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I bit for him at Royal Ascot rather stupidly.
Well, back to the day, though.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, the Jersey Stakes was just a bit of a mess from my point of view. I got it all wrong and probably should have backed the winner and didn't. But anyway, that's a story for another day. The 2 I like here, Harpocrates is a horse very much on the up. His victory at Tipperary last time has been boosted by the 3rd Insinuendo from the William McCreary stable. The time figure is very healthy. I think actually Maker of Kings has won again, the horse that he beat that day. I think he won at Leopardstown next time out under a good ride from the front. But I've also got another horse on my mind here that Tony will know quite well. 4 Home 2 from the Johnny Mercer stable. Johnny's horse have just come into the peak fitness. I've been waiting for them all season to start clicking into gear. They kind of like had a very slow start through April and May, but just when at the time when all the big prizes have been dished out, that's when Johnny seems to have come to the fore. Obviously, got his Royal Ascot winner. He's having loads of success over in Ireland at the moment. I think he's had 6 winners in the last 22 days. And this horse caught the eye the other day behind Magnanimous, who's a horse very much on the up, who just got first run and he quickened away because he was more handily ridden. And I don't think Leopardstown really suits this fella because he does come from off the speed. But as Tony will know, Leopardstown's a hard track to make ground up in the home straight. They get away from you there, and it's very rare you see something coming from that far back. Only a horse like Salamrock can make up that kind of ground, as he proved when he won on Ballysax Day. But I like his profile. He ran well in a good race. It's worked out well at the Curragh early in the season when Johnny's horses needed the run. A mile and good ground is ideal. He's got a good draw because this race is on the round track. He slots every single box I'm looking to tick here. So yeah, I'm a big advocate here of 4 home 2.
Big advocate there for 4 home 2 for Andy. Tony?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The Leopardstown race that Magnanimous won was a real sprint, and he got way too far behind. The only thing is he does tend to miss the break, and in this race here I can't see any pace at all, which is going to work against 4 home 2, but could work against Cinnamon. Cinnamon's far and away best performance came at Irish Champions Weekend last year when they went a mad gallop in that Boomerang Stakes. I think it was Century Dream that set the pace. So it's a race that I would lean towards 4 home 2, and I think he might be a little bit disrespected as the market factors in too much. Cinnamon's going to improve for the run at Leopardstown, but I'm just reluctant to get too involved because I think both of those want a bit of a pace to run at, and it could develop into a little bit of a messy race as on the round mile here. So I'm happy enough to pass this one over.
Passing this one over, so we'll come straight back to you then for the 525. 2 more races to go through quickly here at the end of this Curragh Irish Derby Day preview. The 525, the 1 mile Dubai Duty Free Handicap. Tony, 17 run as it stands.
Yeah, good race this. Thought there were a few at the top that maybe didn't have much of a chance, and a few at the bottom that didn't have much of a chance. So you could kind of maybe take a chance on back and something in the middle of the weights that each way with the 17 runners you're probably going to be getting 5 places. So the ones that I was kind of looking at, I thought Bo Pedro might be able to perform a little bit better back on the ground. The ground on Irish 1000 Guineas Day was absolutely terrible, and I'd forgive any horse a bad run there. So he hasn't actually run terribly, but he seemed to be spinning a bit in the really testing stuff. So I thought he had a little bit of a chance. Michael Halford, Horse Eagles Flight was another one that was given a little bit of a chance. They spent most of his career running him over 10 and 12 furlongs, cut him back to a mile the last, and he looked to really enjoy it. I think he'll actually be better at the Curragh. I think straight ahead track will actually suit him better to be able to ride a race, drop him out and come with a run. The horse he beat reopposes, but has won 6. That horse is Dream Tail. Third one to give a little bit of a squeak will be Luke Short. Hasn't had things go his way. I think in the last couple of runs he met fairly significant trouble at Leopardstown on his last start, and then the run before that he was at Cork and he was thrown on the far side, race against the far rail. I had no chance there as that race kind of unfolded. So it did be my 3 against the field. The price dependent with Bo Pedro, Eagles Flight and Luke Short.
Great stuff, Andy.
You can tell that me and Tony watch a lot of Irish racing because he's pretty much covered everything I was going to say here. I think Bo Pedro's an interesting run on several counts because I'm quite surprised that Taron Shaman isn't running in this race. I thought Taron Shaman was hugely unlucky in that race that He Knows No Fear scrambled home in the other day, and obviously it's the same connections as Bo Pedro. So maybe Bo Pedro's always been the project for this race. And I agree with everything he says about Bo Pedro's run last time out. Beyond Visualisation, who relished the ground. I think it was a race that Lafayette was favourite in. But not only was it bottomless that day, it was very, very windy, and it was just tough going for the horse. I think they're getting buffeted all over the place. So, look, he's only got beat 5 lengths, even though he's finished down the field. So he didn't run that tragically. So if you scrap that off his dance card and concentrate on his course and distance form and his form on better ground, I do think Bo Pedro's very much back in the mix in a race like this. Luke Shaw was absolutely desperate the other day in that race that He Knows No Fear won. He was trying to go for a run up the inside. He got blocked every which way he went. He's another one who you'd certainly factor into your shortlist. Particularly trained by Noel Mead, I think, is becoming more of a flat trainer nowadays. He's almost like the Irish version of Alan King. I'm still waiting for Kevin Prendergast to click into gear. I think he's gone 60 odd days without a winner. So that sort of tempers enthusiasm with regards to Alzheimer's, who's knocked out some good numbers on the all weather. And obviously Eagles Flight has got to be mentioned as well. So it's a trappy old race, but yeah, Bo Pedro, of those ones we mentioned, I'd be interested to see how bookmakers price him up, because they might just think, oh, he's run badly last time out, and I think they probably might be wrong with that.
Bo Pedro there for getting a double thumbs up from Andy and Tony. On to the 2-mile handicap, Andy.
Yeah, I was getting ready to line up quite a few of my chips for Arcadian Sunrise. Had that horse come over to contest the Ascot Stakes. I think he got balloted out. I think he actually missed the cut because it was just too low. I think he rated 89. He didn't get in the end. I'm not sure whether that's the absolute definite case, but I'll stand to be corrected on that. But he was hugely impressive over jumps the day before at Punchestown, and the time figure I got for him that day when he won at the County Kildare track was very, very healthy. And his flat form's not too shabby either. He ran in one of those conditions races at Listowel behind Mount Leinster the season before, and I thought he ran quite well that day. As we know, Mount Leinster's a healthy 100 rated horse on the flat. He then beat Ilmig the next day very easily, and he's now back number. And as I said, his last 2 runs over hurdles have been very commendable beyond Jazzaway, and then he won the next day at the same track. So off a mark of 89, I think compensation awaits for Arcadian Sunrise. I see him being a very strongly back favourite. I can't believe he won't be chalked up fav in the last.
Arcadian Sunrise sure to be fav, and rightly so according to Andy. Last one here then, Tony, who do you fancy in the last?
Yeah, well, again, I would agree with an awful lot. There's races every season where categories of races where you don't maybe take much interest. 2-mile handicaps are probably kind of mine. I don't know this season. I seem to be getting them wrong or not taking much interest in them. But I'm a massive fan of this horse. I think this horse is a Galway hurdle horse, and if that's the case, he really should be going close in it, which looks quite a moderate race off 89. I actually think it's a plus that he didn't go to Ascot. I think he's quite fast for a hurdler stroke to stay in handicap. I think 2.5 miles around there might have stretched him a bit. Although the Ascot Stakes this year wasn't that strongly run. I think it's a much softer race. Yeah, it's hard to see him anything other than a short price favourite, and he really would deserve to be a short price favourite. I think he could be a cut above. Just to only the top horse there, Shoshone Warrior. He has quite a good record on good ground. The only alarm bells I would have with him is that he was bought out of Aidan O'Brien's to go to Joseph's for only 30,000, which is very cheap for a horse that's rated 100, and could potentially be a horse that could have went to Australia. So I wonder, is there some sort of a physical issue there with him, because he would look cheap at the price. But yeah, John Quealy's horse by far and away the most likely winner of this one.
Great stuff. I agree again. Plenty of occasions where that's been the case here. Hopefully that means plenty of bets that we've flagged up. Hopefully some value as well when the prices do come out too. Thank you very much to both Tony and for Andy for joining us today and sharing their insights. If you want plenty more previews, do subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel. You can find all sorts of things up there, not just racing as well, all other sports too. And you can find all of it as well on any podcast platform, the Oddschecker Betting Show podcast as well. Do download the Oddschecker app for the best prices, best place terms, bookie offers, free bets, and everything else as well. Do check out both tipping columns of the experts today. Plenty up there, not just over the course of the weekend, but every day of racing as well too. Hopefully we've given you some value. Please do enjoy the racing and please gamble responsibly.